Defense is back and bulkier than ever. We've got new toys, new units, and this weird focus on making sure that it doesn't take one hit to kill a unit. There are a lot of ramifications that go all the way through the modes. We're going to talk about all that, but first, what is the tank you're using to deal with all of this nonsense? Let me know in the comments. Light and Dark Season is up first, and we're going to talk about some of the toys. Firm, Kento, Curb Stomp, tons of Divine Veins. Breath of Life is abundant and everywhere. But first, we need to talk about Felix. And I mean, we've seen him on offense, we've seen him on defense, we see him everywhere. But I think his biggest impact is probably on defense because of Fjorm. Being able to kill her is necessary in order for things to get going, and the way you do that is melee attacks. It is near impossible to use ranged attacks, as you're seeing from this nonsense that's just happening right now. The thing that he's doing is he's making sure that all of the offenses now can't be one-dimensional. You can't just defend against ranged attacks. You have to worry about melee as well. It's very interesting, he's very powerful, and we'll see as we get more and more things to counter stuff like him. Next is Hathrin, and this unit is so good that she's showing up even on Light and Dark Season. And in fact, any season you can use her. I've seen her in Arena, I've seen her all over Chaos Season. This unit is crazy because of all the things she can do. Her bulk stops a lot of the Gale Force plays. Her all of the crazy effects that she puts out stops a lot of the absolutely nutty tanks that are out there. And the healing and flat DR helps versus hit and run teams. This unit does it all, including making one of your units a refresher whenever they use drawback, reposition, or whatever it is. This unit is nuts and is a big reason why Ike's value has dropped so low. For one thing, it's really hard to kill her, but she makes it easier to get around Ike and harder for him to do the things he wants to do, like heal. This unit is crazy, and probably the best mythic in the game right now, which is a scary thing to say. The last thing we have to talk about is Divine Veins, and you can see what I just did there with Lumera, where I drew back Sharena and peppered the field with Divine Vein Stone, erasing the ice that was there. And then I come in with Gulvig and use Divine Vein Flame to erase the remainder of it. And you're going to have to get used to doing things like this if you want to use player phase teams. It is a ugly back and forth because a lot of times I can't even see the terrain because of this stupid ice all over the map. But expect more of this. I think they're going to be handing out more Divine Veins, and I think they're also going to be handing out ways to cleanse them as well. It's going to be an interesting back and forth that we're about to see, and I would expect it sooner rather than later. For Astra Anima, I really want to talk about bulk, and in particular, Shield Fighter and what it has brought. Fjorm is an excellent unit, but the ramifications of Shield Fighter and the number of units you can put it on and how good it makes them is a very big deal, and is a lot of this bulking up that we're seeing. That is what's causing it. It has a lot of the same effects that Hardy Fighter had when it first came out, but we should talk about one of its best users in Fjorm, and what you're seeing here is the Armor Ball. Yes, it's back. A lot of it is because of exactly what we're seeing. The amount of bulk and how hard it is to one round kill a unit makes these defenses much better. Now, I want to warn you, if you're planning on building one of these normally only last about a season. The reason they're good is because people don't normally bring teams to break that amount of bulk. Now they have to, because these are becoming quite common and should be for at least another season, maybe two. So bring a counter to these. I promise you will thank yourselves when they show up because they're very frustrating. The big thing about these though is the AoEs, and you notice I have the value going down here. They've been going down for some time, but when you have someone like Fjorm or Gatry who really does a good job resisting them, and you combine that with Breath of Life, it means the standard way that you would deal with these, which is just put an AoE on a unit and go out and destroy these things doesn't work anymore, especially when you're talking about with Hathran and Freyr. Removing all debuffs is a big deal. This defense is kind of a symptom of what we're seeing and is very interesting. I expect to see more like it as we go on. I'm going to pick on Tamara for just a little bit here, and I know there are lots of fans of her, but in particular, I tried to use her a ton during this last season, and the problem is more Omni tanks in general. They are just losing value, and the thing is, with Omni tanks, and especially with the amount of threat range that units get right now, you are having to put them away from your team, stack up bonuses on them, and then those bonuses are getting taken away by Nurgle that you just saw. It means a lot of the supports you would have, like the Drive NCD or the Drive NFU, or even putting a bonus NFU, are hard to do because bonuses get taken away, and if a unit is near enough to your Omni tank, they generally get taken out by someone like Felix, for instance. I've tried to use Tamara in both a frontliner role and as an Omni tank, and I had a lot of trouble. That's not to say you can't use her. I know there are a lot of fans, and this is a good Omni tank, but she is a good unit in a class that is getting devalued. The last thing I want to talk about is save balls, and in particular, Gatchery and Bernie. Yes, these two go together. The problem with save balls right now is everything on teams, it's so bulky that they have trouble killing stuff, and so turns can go very, very long, and you get into the 6th and 7th turn and things start going poorly when you can't also get pots. It's something that you should worry about as you go through here. This Gatchery does a fantastic job at repelling Felix, but he definitely can't kill him. So it's something to look at as you go in. You need to pair this team with someone like Bernie, who has a ton of nuking power, which... let's talk about the unit that is the premier nuke right now. The premier ranged nuke is Bernie. I'm still taking that all in. And understand, I was very high on this unit, but I had no idea that that was going to happen. The fact is that Fjorm is excellent, but on the 4th hit, she doesn't get that DR. So if you can outspeed her and survive through one of her hits, if she has hardy bearing, then you can do a lot of damage there. And that's where Bernie just shines. So you throw Miracle on her and great things happen. But you create very convoluted teams that way, where you have a near save and a far save that are very good at survival, and then you have someone out there who has to do the killing, especially with units like Hathran out there. It gets difficult to fit all of that on a team, and that's what we're seeing with offenses and the struggles. They have to go up against so many different types of defenses that it gets tough. If you are having a hard time, you're not alone. So my advice to you is get creative and bring lots of different teams, especially bring an armor breaker team for any of these stupid armor balls that sit in the corner that just infuriate us. All right, let's talk about archetypes, and I want to talk about Ike first, and I think this replay really showcases what I'm talking about, because I don't want folks to come across as me saying that Ike is a bad unit right now. Ike is going to survive everything. This is a very good Ike player who's going to do all the things that they're supposed to do. But the problem is you have someone like Felix who's going to run around and fight weaknesses in the team. Also, you have Celica flying around and a whole bunch of other things. There are a lot of pieces that you have to worry about with Omni tanks, and that's really the problem. I've seen a lot of different ways you can combat this. One of them is pairing Ike with a near save just to combat Felix. That's how big that unit is. But on that note, that is one of the reasons why Cav lines have become so weak, because they are very one-dimensional. And we have some hybrid Cav lines that are working, and I'm going to show you something like that here in just a second. But a pure Cav line with a whole bunch of ranged nukes and possibly some Pathfinder to help you get around, or even just with Ike, just isn't cutting it right now. You need a lot of different threats, and that means different flavors of threats. So you have different ranged threats, magical and physical, and you want to throw melee threats in there, and you want to throw debuffs in there, and you want to throw Breath of Life, and you can fit all that on a defense now because of the quality of mythics, which is nuts. Cav lines, however, are very one-dimensional and don't quite get it done. I've finally settled on the term Hathran Ball, and I think that covers a lot of different types of defenses. You're seeing one here where all of the units are kind of crammed up in the corner, and of course you saw the Armor Ball earlier. I think that's just a version of a Hathran Ball, but basically it revolves around how amazing this unit is at helping units tank. So you can finally do the come at me bro strategies that we saw way back in the Catria Ball days. What this means is a lot of the hit and run strategies, and you're seeing one that they tried right here, don't quite work because all of the units are bulky and it takes a lot to take all of them down. So hit and run is hurting right now. I just ticked them down a little bit because I think they were already not doing amazing. And there are definitely ways you can make it work, but if that's a favorite strategy of yours, then you're most likely struggling right now. All right, this defense is the new hot thing, and this is from Infantry Pulse, hence the term Infantry Pasta. So anyway, I think this is a very creative and versatile defense that we're seeing right now in both Astra Anima and Light and Dark. This is a very fun configuration, and you can throw in a lot of different types of units. But the big thing that this hinges on is using the Divine Vein Ice that Brave Robin puts out and circling around that mountain terrain. And so it makes it much harder to initiate from a player phase standpoint. There are definitely ways you can do that, and there are a lot of creative folks that are coming up with those, but understand that you have to work harder. Anytime you make your opponent work harder, it means they're more likely to make a mistake, and those are always good for you on defense. On Gale Force, I have things kind of sitting at about the same, and I mean, understand it's harder because of Divine Vein Ice, but you got Felix, and there's there's a lot of different ins and outs. Ultimately, I think if you're using Gale Force, it's working just as well as it always has. It is a little harder now, but you have such powerful units and so many actions that it's also more forgiving than it used to be. I'm a big fan of Gale Force still. I know we've been talking about it ever since Celica came out, but warping has absolutely changed Arena, and unfortunately not for the better. It's made things a lot more annoying. There are some new wrinkles to that though, and let's get into that. But first we've got to look at Panette, and I'm sorry guys, I know this isn't just an amazing replay here. I will show you this is kind of a budget Panette, and there are some things that I struggle with going up against her. I think a fully maxed out Panette is just amazing. I've done lots of sims and I've heard lots of reports from people who do use her. Once you can merge her up to +10, I think you are just going to absolutely love wrecking things with that unit. And you're going to need it because of some of the frustrations we're about to talk about. Before we get to that, I have to talk about Alphonse because he's the one brave unit that I didn't talk about. And the thing with Alphonse is he's fairly obvious. There's nothing that we're going to discover about Alphonse. I mean, Alphonse has big numbers and does a lot of fun things and buffs up the team, but I think where this really is nice is in Arena, and if you have a merged up Alphonse, or if you're planning to merge up Alphonse, I think he's going to be a good asset for a while. He has a ton of range. He has a really unique support that helps you the further on you go, which can help with those bulky units at the very end of a map, and he comes with a lot of good skills to help his teammates as well, like Breath of Life. I've really enjoyed my testing in Arena, and I know folks have enjoyed a lot of playing with him just in general. The last thing we have to talk about is Shez, and if you have Shez on your team, he's amazing, and if you are going against Shez, he's terrible. I think this is his biggest impact place though. It's really interesting. What you want out of your legendary is the ability to take out another unit. Normally they're not going to be your big attacker. You just saw Sharena go in there and smack someone, and suddenly just here in a second Shez is going to fly in from outer space and take out another unit. That's what you want. That is a form of support, and it's very, very powerful. Unfortunately, what this does is it makes older GHBs like Vigard much harder to use. For one thing, they don't have quite the bulk, but also the movement is so limited that it's hard to put pressure on the other team. I know I haven't made it explicit, but they are very much changing the guard right now. They want you to update your score bots. They want you to update your, well, everything. We have a lot of turnover right now in the game, and it's an interesting place to be. I do like that they're offering us free units like Panette in order to do that. I don't like that it is so expensive to outfit them though. We're going to talk about Summoner Duels next, and there are really two things I want to bring up about this little chart from FlareBlitz. Thank you so much for all you do for the community. First is Brave Felix, and I had a bit of a humble brag earlier with Bernie and how I was higher than everyone else. I mean, it wasn't that I wasn't high on Felix. I definitely thought he was an amazing unit and the best of the batch. I just didn't think he was going to be an SD unit, and clearly I was wrong. The second most unit used, and keep in mind he was used for SDR and SDS. This unit is incredible, and you can just use him everywhere, and Oblivion is so happy right now. The other thing I want to bring up is the even spread here, which is really interesting. Normally what you'd see is a drop-off, kind of a natural break where you had the elite units and then everyone below, and you still definitely have some of that. There's a drop between, say, Duo Fjorm and Brave Robin. That's a 10% there, but overall, this is a pretty smooth spread, and what it means is the teams are becoming less homogenous, which is an amazing place to be, and if you're an SD player, it should make you really happy. I have enjoyed seeing all the different variety of teams and the different ways you can put them together. We're going to talk about a few of those things right now. We've talked about it before, but Soren is good or bad depending on the units around him. And the thing that has happened was, since we have so many crazy ways to get all the way across the map, it is even more important now to have saviors. And being able to have a dual save can be incredibly powerful. This is Oblivion's team from the last SDR, and notice that's an SDR, not SDS. We've talked about him a lot as an SDS player, and I think as an SDS unit, he's very good. Just understand that this is the first time we've started really seeing him in SDR. As long as this unit is unique, he's going to be good, and that's all there is to it. I do want to touch on Nurgle, and I do think Nurgle has fallen a bit. Understand that he used to be just tip top of the meta, and what we're seeing is his nuking power is starting to drop, and as that happens, of course, well, your units have to do two things, right? They have to destroy things and they have to support. We're not in the kind of meta where you can do one or the other unless you're really special like Soren. But even then, we wouldn't call Soren S+ tier or anything like that. Nurgle has fallen from those heights and is still very good, but it's interesting seeing some of the other supports start to replace him. Okay, there's just a few more things to talk about here, and the first is Shadow Shift. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but I think this is incredibly powerful for some very special openers. And this is one from DHM, and increasing your threat range is just such a powerful thing. And you saw how much we can cover in just a single move. That is incredibly valuable for a lot of different kinds of maps, and something that is unfortunately locked behind a paywall, but if you're a big SD fan, I think that is probably something that you're going to want access to. It's not a must summon, but it is a very fun summon. The other thing is, I mean, we've talked about Fjorm and Bernie. Fjorm in particular is just amazing because of how bulky she is, but also because of her duo skill. And her duo skill is what's going to keep her around for longer. Being able to essentially hit the pause button is amazing. We talk a lot about action economy, and making your opponent waste actions is a big deal. Fjorm is going to be around for a while, and one of the main reasons Bernie is up here is because she actually does well versus this unit. So things should be fun in SD for a bit. The last thing I want to talk about is a few special builds. The first is the Bernie build I was talking about, and the reason I want to highlight this is because of how cheap it is. This is inheriting Miracle and Reciprocal Aid. Reciprocal Aid is more for Aether raids. If you want to attack into one of those Fjorms and you can't kill her in one hit, you can actually go and Reciprocal Aid, get more health, and then get Miracle all over again. That's without getting a healer, so that can be something that is very, very useful to you. The next one is not cheap, and this is Gatry, and this is the near save build right now. This does a lot of good against Felix, which is the one you have to counter. Be on the lookout for this, especially if you are a spender. This is something that would be good to get from Binding World because of how expensive this is. The last one, of course, is Panette, and I think you guys are going to have a lot of fun outfitting her. Just if you can keep a Laguz Friend 4 laying around, it would be advantageous to have on this unit. If you'd like to hear more about the meta, PM1 and I just sat down and had a long conversation about it. Go check out that video. Members, you are amazing. Thank you for all you do and for all you allow the channel to do. Take care and schedule an appointment with your FEHologist real soon.